My name is Mark Pendroy, but most people call me M, and I'd like to talk, I guess, about several things, but one of the things is forgiveness.
What do you know about forgiveness?
Very little. I know that for a long time I struggled with the idea that forgiveness was something that I should do. The Lord's Prayer kind of makes a contract out of it, that God will forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. So that lays out a basic premise for me that tells me I have to do it because the word is out that God forgives. And so I've never heard that he doesn't, but kind of the main thought is that God forgives, and so I don't have anything to oppose that, except for feelings. But I always thought that forgiveness was something that you should do. It was the right thing to do if you want to live up to your contract with God or the rest of the universe. You really need to get in sync with forgiving, especially if you feel you need forgiveness. But lately, through my struggle with cancer and human relationships and etc., I've begun to believe that forgiveness is more about it's more about having the thing that you need to be forgiven reduced. In other words, if I want to forgive you for stepping on my toe, and I could see that you didn't do it on purpose, and that's what used to be my old routine too. I would forgive if a person was sorry. But if they weren't sorry, they didn't get forgiveness. And what would really be the case, which Jesus left an example of that, was that it did not matter to me that you stepped on my toe. It didn't hurt me, and therefore it didn't even happen really. I reduced its value so that you did not you didn't offend me at all. You merely lost your balance and my toe happened to be in the way. And there was no damage, and even if there was, that could be rectified. But so to reduce the value of the thing we thought was taken from us would be a more Christ-like manner of forgiveness. Because after all, what he forgave, which is by no means an example that I could ever come anywhere near close to, so it's hard for me to even think about that. But anyway, that's the way I come to think of it, and I want to explore the ideas I had before because, like I said, I always felt that somebody had to earn the forgiveness. They had to repent. They had to be sorry for what they did. They had to pay me back for whatever it was, and with interest, hopefully. And when you're dealing with things like pride and stuff like that, the interest can be rather bizarre, or your thoughts about it can be anyway. But I guess I would like to say that I did it because I had to. It's kind of like, and it goes back to the way I was raised up in the Catholic schools. I went there because there was a disciplinary problem, but really basically they put this guilt on you that you should be sorry for what you've done, and you have to show sorrow and show repentance. And so that's almost like according to the old law, and no one can really achieve that because on any given day you don't feel like being forgiving, or you don't feel like repenting, and you're sorry that it hurt somebody, but you're not sorry that you did it because you know you're going to do it again. And so that leads into a whole other area that I know nothing about, but I do know that as a result of trying to stay sober and work the steps, etc., I have learned a lot about human nature, and learned, I went for a long time operating on the auspices that forgiveness was a choice. It was a choice made by the will. And I thought that I should forgive, therefore I forgave. And that it didn't mean I had to like the person or like the thing that happened to me or anything. It just meant that I needed to make that choice, and in that, by so doing, I would be able to let me get this right. I would be able to feel forgiven. I'm trying to put, if I were to, God, I got mixed up there. If I forgave somebody, it was my choice, and by so doing, I let them go. I let them off the hook, so to speak. They were no longer governing a voting member in my brain. And they, in other words, it didn't count what they did.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yes.
I don't know that
Yes.
I am. Because
No, you are. So if you forgive somebody, they're off the hook. Their slate is wiped clean, and therefore
they're free to go.
They're free to go. And then the result that you are getting hooked up on is your reaction to also feel forgiven for something that you've done because you just forgave. Is that where you were going?
No, not really, because
Okay.
I don't think it's a tip. I don't think it can ever be balanced. I don't
Okay.
think it'll ever achieve
Okay.
any kind of. And maybe that's another problem I have of thinking that some of the things that I need forgiveness for require way too much counterbalance to be forgiven, and that's not necessarily right either. But the bottom line is I let them off the hook, and they're no longer occupying space in my head. I'm no longer obsessing about that, and I get a little bit of freedom, and they get a little freedom if they were attached to that. They may not even know anything happened.
Exactly.
But if something happened good, people have a tendency to remember it. You know, I'll steal something from somebody else who left this example. I got a wedding I got to go to on Saturday. And I gave you my suit 2 weeks in advance, and you knew I was going to my sister's wedding. And I come in on Saturday morning, and it can't be found or anything. And the poor girl at the counter, she doesn't know what happened. She sees I'm distraught. She sees, but I say, never mind, don't worry about it. I got another suit. Don't worry about it. Just go on about the rest of your day. Don't worry about it. I got another suit. I'll come back Monday and you'll find it for me. And I let that person off the hook. She wasn't really on the hook, but she probably felt bad. She's a conscientious worker. She's always been nice to me in the past. You know, blah, blah, blah. I let her off the hook, and she'll never forget that because somebody treated her nice for no reason at all.
Are you talking about like an alterationist or a dry cleaner or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I was sent my suit to get cleaned.
Okay.
And it wasn't ready.
Okay.
And it was in plenty of time. I had every reason to sit there and make a fuss, but I didn't.
Right.
I just said, don't worry about it. And I got another suit. And, but if I make a scene, then it just causes so much more trouble, and I've learned that the less trouble, the better. So it was easy for me to see how the mechanics of it worked. And I proceeded to forgive a lot of people using that. But I still remembered it. And it still had a place in my head, you know, and it still governed. It brought to bear pressures on my new relationships, my new things that were happening. Because, no, I can't trust that person because of because last time I got involved with somebody like that, this is what the guy did or whatever, and so I start programming these negative outcomes of stuff, and that in itself cheats both me and whoever the other party is out of the truth. And so the more I learn to go towards this new thing that I'm suggesting and pointing at, that really comes from A Course in Miracles, is that to be able to allow that thing not to mean anything, so therefore there was no transgression. And after all, we're talking about events that, for all intents and purposes, a lot of thoughts are lending itself towards the fact that what we're experiencing now in the physical universe is just an illusion. It's just an illusion, a delusion, an illusion, that all these things that it doesn't really exist, that it's only a dream. And then when we wake up and go back to being with our family, which is God, that none of this will be just like as if it happened in a dream. Quite oftentimes people in early sobriety, drug addicts and alcoholics, have a lot of dreams about their particular addiction, and their addiction visits them in the dreams, and they wake up sometimes in a cold sweat and think that they got drunk, or they got loaded, or they ate too much, or whatever it was, and they realize, oh, I'm glad it was only a dream. I didn't really smoke a cigarette. I didn't really shoot heroin. I didn't really drink that liquor. I didn't really commit that crime or treat that person poorly. So with it lending itself all towards this is just an illusion anyway, then nothing that happens here, but that's really hard for me to say too, nothing that really happens here in this physical realm has any consequence. I can't go so far as to say that, because I believe it does if, at the very minimum, it affects us here and now in this illusion, and I'm, encountering, I've been encountering a great deal of ease of forgiveness that I didn't think was possible, adopting this newer idea about forgiveness. Not new, obviously it's been around since the beginning of God, but it's new to me, and it's insofar as what I've heard and read about forgiveness, it's not. And I have done extensive work, and there's two books that I'd like to recommend. One was written by Desmond Tutu and his granddaughter, I believe, who's also a priestess or whatever in that church in South Africa. But he was part of an architect of a program called, Truth and Forgiveness or something, where they healed the crimes of apartheid by these tribunals that were held on the back of pickup trucks out in rural South Africa, where it was almost like a courtroom type of situation where the person was allowed to confront their perpetrators, and the perpetrator was allowed to have a dialogue about that, and apparently it worked quite well, although nothing can bring back the lives that were taken or anything, but apparently it worked quite well to help stitch back, and I'm not there, so all I know is what the media tells us, but apparently forgiveness has taken hold in South Africa, especially at that time when it was really needed to sew that country back together. And I'm not here to testify about any of the politics of any of that, but I know that program that was created by Desmond and his granddaughter and Mandela was part of it too. But anyway, so if they can come up with this plan of how to forgive such drastic situations that existed as part of apartheid, I'm able to stitch together this, this measly problems that I think I have with forgiveness. And all of us, I know that I built a lot of the crimes that were perpetrated on me up to be possibly greater than they were. And I diminished them also, and played them down and acted like they didn't happen and was in denial of them too. So I've never really struck an accurate balance, and I don't want anybody to get that idea that I know what I'm talking about. I'm just having a dialogue.
And what was the second one that you were going to recommend? You said you had 2 books or 2 ideas on forgiveness.
Oh yeah, the other one is a book of forgiveness by, I can't think of his name.
Tipping Collins?
No. I have been giving the book away, and I currently don't have a copy. Every copy I get, I give away to people that need it. The name of the second book that we're searching so frantically for is The Healing...
Forgiveness, the greatest healer of all.
Forgiveness, the greatest healer of all, by Jampolsky.
Yeah.
Samuel Jampolsky, right?
Gerald Jampolsky.
Gerald Jampolsky. But I do want to say, in this effort to look at things that are to be forgiven, if I look at them in terms of how important is it, and how big a deal is it? Yes, you might have inflicted a blow to my pride, but is it worth what I'm going to go into, and then I'm going to need to forgive myself and you some more, because it's going to bring out some stuff in you? And just to realize how important is it? Quite often I make a big deal out of something that really isn't, and then I expect. It's funny, it just opens up too many doors where I can criticize myself more, and that's a big pitfall for me. At any rate, I do think that forgiveness is probably the reason why we're here, because when it really comes down to it, forgiveness is choosing love over hate. And they say God is love, so God is forgiveness. And the God thing, or the good thing for me to do with my life, is to choose love over hate and choose forgiveness over what do I gain from an unforgiving nature? Nothing. I see no gain from it. Maybe there's a business gain for it, but in the world of the spirit, which I tend to be gravitating towards now, I see no use for it. But at any rate, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for listening to me.